they have access to the courts. I have seen the pendulum swing both too far to the left and too far to the right. And regrettably so, because the same right result at one time should be the same right result in another. And because of the political climate in Alabama, that has not been so.
People who have been injured have access to the courts, and that's mainly through our contingency fee system of compensating lawyers so they will help people who have been injured. The problem I see with us, this state being called a Jackpot Justice state, is that now we're at a point where it's so far to the other side that, like me, I represent plaintiffs, and so when you're dealing with some lawyers on the other side, even though they know their client has wronged my client, they use a very conservative Supreme Court to devalue a case. And in my opinion, that is wrong, and that hurts the person who is ultimately hurt. And so I think we've got to get to a place where, both sides, the plaintiff and the defendant, feel that they have been treated fairly. And I think if you do that, then you'll get to a result that is just.
As far as injured people, physically injured people, the access is there, especially if you're injured gravely. Where access has really been cut off recently, in the past 10 years with some Supreme Court decisions, is people who've been defrauded and the consumer protection laws. Because in Alabama, when I came out of law school, what's called arbitration really didn't apply necessarily to consumer transactions. And so if you were cheated by the person that sold you a car, for example, you could sue that person and take them into court. The Supreme Court changed that and made arbitration applicable to consumer transactions. So if you want to sue your car dealer, you're now going to go to arbitration as opposed to going into court. And the other issue with fraud, the court kind of changed the definition of what fraud is. That made it much, much more difficult to actually have all the elements necessary to have a claim that you can actually win in court. So the injured people have access, but I think access has been cut off in some other areas for people that have been injured monetarily as opposed to physically.
I think the access has been there for people who have been injured or defrauded. Whether justice has been available has been subject to some swings. I'm actually encouraged by the trend that I'm seeing in the Alabama Supreme Court to kind of moderate some of the blatantly pro-business, pro-defendant rulings that have come out that didn't even make logical sense and seem just to be very results oriented, and now they've seemed to be moving back towards the middle. I'd like to see it stay in the middle, but I know that plaintiffs' lawyers are motivated very much by justice, and as a consequence they're willing often to take cases that on a contingent fee basis so that people can have access to courts and have access to a chance, at least, to get that justice. And so I think it's there.